Welcome to the class tonight, Oracle's class, the 7 Hermetic Principles. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview. The 7 Hermetic Principles can get pretty in depth. They can really go a long way. So let's start with the first slide, which is going to go into the history of the 7 Hermetic Principles. So I'm going to stick to the script the best that I can because the 7 Hermetic Principles range and span very deep. So we're going over the basics of them so I can give you a full understanding, and I can kind of give you a play-by-play or point-by-point ways of how you can utilize these different principles in your everyday life, because that's what the principles are all about. The principles are philosophies. It is the philosophies of Hermes Trismegistus, which is Tahuti or Thoth, if you look into the Egyptians. So what you want to do is understand this was the God of all gods when it came to knowledge. This was the deity that possessed all the information. He was the only deity that was able to beat the higher deities that had more power. He was able to beat them at different mind games or different feats because he had all the knowledge. So it was almost like unfair because he was able to do everything. Although he's not revered as the most dominant God, he is revered as the most knowledgeable God. He is also known for his humor. He is a trickster. He loves to play games. So whenever you're learning from him, you're going to learn in parables. You're going to have to read between the lines because he's going to make you think. He's going to make you stretch your whole mental capacity to understand something at a higher level. This book, the Kabbalion, is written just like that. If you all have not read the book yet, please, I encourage you, get the book, read the book, because the book will basically break down principles that will help you to shift, change everything in your life. These are the master keys. This is how every religion, every society, every kingdom, every great place that was created, they were created out of these principles. So principles, again, are philosophy. So this is something that when I read it, I'm going to get something a little different from when someone else reads it, because we'll talk about it here. Every truth is a half-truth. Why is every truth a half-truth? Because every person possessing the knowledge of that truth has a different understanding of the truth. Does that make sense? Now you see how I'm talking and kind of quick going. That's how this whole book is written. It's written so that you have to stop and slow down and really think about what is being said. At the end of this session, I want you to ask me any questions that you have, or if you want to stop me during the presentation, ask me questions, ask questions. But again, I'm going to try to stick to the script the best that I can, because there is a lot going on with this work. The 7 Hermetic Principles are very short. However, they're very, very in-depth, and they make you think, and they take your consciousness to different levels. We talk about the students or the initiates, we talk about the teachers, we talk about the masters, and then we talk about the higher level spirits in this book. This book is very powerful because it literally will unlock everything within you to open the reality that you truly desire. This is the work of Tahuti. So,
and you'll give examples, right?
I'll give examples, yeah. I will give examples, yeah. So, all the great Hermetic teachings that are carried on by the great masters are basically learned from this body of work. So this work is what basically is the foundation or the father of all the other works that are out there. However, because theology was taking over so much philosophy that we almost lost the principles. So a lot of the principles not truly written down, they were actually passed along from one initiate to the next initiate, or one teacher to the next teacher, or one master to the next master. So therefore, we didn't get all the information directly in a text. A lot of it was destroyed. However, what wasn't destroyed was pretty much memorized and was given and passed down. So we do have a complete work. We just don't have it in many different languages and in many different understandings. We have it specifically written the way it's written, but it's written the way it's written because it's not for every person. It's not for every person at every level of consciousness. This book is written for people that are moving into higher levels of consciousness. so that they can become the masters, or they can hold the master keys to the universe and shift and change everything that they want. Shift and change everything they want to create everything that they desire. So, very interesting work. The Hermetic teachings are in all the lands and are based in all religions, but not identified in any particular country or religious sect. Why is that? It's because these are philosophies, and you have wise men, wise women that take the philosophies and they create their own knowledge behind them. So some of the knowledge was left out, of course, because it was set up to benefit the person who was creating the society or creating the religion or creating the group, wherever it was. The intent was for the philosophy to stay poor. Now, what does that mean? But man mixed theology with philosophy, and the secret teachings were almost lost. And that's what I was just saying. It was meant to stay simple. It was meant to stay adept. It was meant to stay as one. However, people got a hold to it, and they started to expand it and put their own little mix into it. So they mixed theology with philosophy, and they created the societies or religions or kingdoms or foundations of what they wanted to create. Again, it goes back to the 7 Hermetic principles. If they knew the 7 Hermetic principles, they could create whatever they wanted to create, but then they would only tell the people a certain aspect or a certain part of it. They leave a little bit out, so they never got to that full understanding of the philosophies, because these were secret philosophies that were not supposed to be given to everybody. And even now to today, the way the book is written, it's very hard for you to understand everything that is in the book. So I just want you to take that with a grain of salt, because at the end of the very first chapter, it says, if you're not ready for this work, this book, then it's going to be words, words, words. And literally it's like a bunch of jumbled words. And the very first time that I read this book, probably 10 years ago, honestly, it felt like it was a bunch of jumbled words. Just words, words, words. I didn't understand a thing. So I started to work with the book and work with the philosophies and start to understand them, so I could help to break them down, make them simple, and then pass the knowledge to someone else. And then still give you the knowledge to read the book, because you still have to get the basic foundation. You have to get the structure. So many people nowadays, they want to just get to the end game fast. Once they get to the end game, like, I'm good, but they have no foundation. And then the end game that they get to is not structured, it doesn't stand, and it falls. And we'll get into the principles about that, because everything is on a rhythm, and everything that goes up comes down. Now, the faster it goes up, the faster it comes down. And it's because there wasn't a foundation. So when you build the foundation and you build the strength of this, with the 7 Hermetic principles, you can build anything that you desire within your own universe. And guess what? What's inside is outside. What's above is below. What's below is above. So therefore, what's built inside is going to always reflect what's outside. So always remember that. We had a class the other week about manifestation, and I said it about 1,000 times. What's on the inside is on the outside. What is above is below. That is the principle of correspondence, and we'll get into that as well. So that is the essence of the 7 Hermetic principles. That's where they come from. They come from the god Tahuti or Thoth. They come from his teachings, the god of wisdom, the god of scribes, Trismegistus. So very, very, very powerful work that this is. So we're going to jump right on into it. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know. So we're going to move to the next page. The next page is slide actually number 3, and it's titled The 7 Principles. All right. So the 7 principles, these are the 7 principles. The first principle is mentalism. The second principle is correspondence. The third is vibration. The fourth is polarity. The fifth is rhythm. The sixth is cause and effect. And the seventh is gender. Just a side note, gender is my favorite one. That's what I've been talking about on some of the social media sites lately and different podcasts, is how gender works with creation. So these are the 7 principles. Now, they're listed in the order most important, okay? Doesn't mean that one is a lot less, but the first principle is mentalism, and the principles build on each other. So the reason it's in order of importance is because one principle builds on the next principle, on the next principle, on the next principle, and then they all circle back around and work together with each other independently or as a core, as a group. So the principles have no rules. Remember that. These are philosophies. So one rule or one principle is not absolute. It is not variable. It just is. Okay? If you can understand that aspect of what I'm teaching tonight, you will grasp this. We get into our three-dimensional minds and we want to go into this space where we're just like, logically, this means this. And logically, if I understand mentalism, I can go to correspondence and I can go to vibration. And then I can skip polarity, I can go to rhythm, and I can understand cause and effect. And maybe I might need gender. But logically, I understand these things. And I'm going to work the ones that I understand and not use the other ones. We have to realize all of these principles are based upon universal law. So if you don't understand all the principles, then they're not necessarily going to work for you the way that you might want them to work. Remember, the principle of rhythm. If it goes up fast, it comes down fast. If it doesn't have a solid foundation, then it falls. Okay? So just remember that. So the 7 principles, here they are. We're going to break them down. We're going to start off with the next slide going into mentalism. Now, mentalism is one that is another favorite of mine because mentalism breaks everything down. And I'm going to really just go through this as it's on the slide, and then I'm going to give you my 2 cents behind it. That way you can get a better understanding of it. Okay, so the principle of mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental, the Kabbalion. Okay, so what we're talking about here is the all is mind. So it's the mind is the most powerful aspect. Now, when I say mind, I'm not speaking about the brain. And here I'm not speaking about the heart, I'm speaking about the all, which is the universal source. It is, you can call God, you can call the universal source, whatever name fits or suits you, you can call it that. That is what we're talking about when we talk about the all, okay? And when we talk about the all is mind, the universe is mental. So this principle embodies the truth that all is mind. So spirit is unknowable, undefinable, and universal. It's an infinite living mind. Now, what does that mean? It's an infinite living mind. It means we talk about on a physical aspect, we look at the material universe. So we think about how everything manifests in this physical universe. And we look at that as the principle of truth that embodies all the mind. When we go into what spirit is unknowable, undefinable, immutable, and it's universal and it's infinite. That means we can never understand it, period. That is the first aspect of what we have to know, is we can never understand the actual mind of the all, okay? Now, we can look at philosophies and books all around that say, hey, well, this is how the earth was created. This is how the universes were created. And this is science trying to figure out God. And it's not going to work. This principle is a mentalism. It says that everything is of the all is of mind. So we have to understand the mind of the all is more complex than we can ever understand. So this is what this is saying. And now I'm going to go back to the script, okay? So the material universe, life, matter, energy, all that is apparent to our material senses. That is what we're talking about when we talk about the material universe. All is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of created things. So when we talk about all is simply a mental creation of the all, that means the all created itself. But you also have to tap into, okay, if something created itself, that means it has to be able to be split, or it's got to be divisible, or it's got to be addition, or it's got to be subtracted from. Something's got to change from it. But with the all does not change. The all is the all. We can never figure out this concept because it is the all. And we just have to just accept that, as we will never understand how the all created everything as a universe and all the universes and us in it. We just have to understand it. Now, Tahuti was asked that question. What is the all? And how does the all create? You know what he did? He sealed his lips. And so the answer to that question was, the lips of the god Thoth have been sealed on the question. Why were they sealed? Because Tahuti said, we're not ready. We would never understand the answer to that question. Now, did he have the answer? Knowing Tahuti, he probably did. But he didn't give it to the human beings because we were not ready for it. Even the gods and the deities that are at much higher levels, he did not give the information to. Why? Because we're not ready. And if the gods of the gods are not ready, then we're definitely not ready as human beings. Our consciousness are nowhere near as high. So, mind is where we live, move, and have our beings. So we are in existence of the all, the existence of the mind. So we're the imagination of the mind. And I'm gonna break that down a little bit later, because we are the imaginations, but that doesn't mean we are not real, okay? Because we're an imagination in a universe that is very real, and we are dense matter, so we are real. However, in the mind of the all, we're an imagination, but this is where we live, so this is our reality, okay? Mentalism provides the master key. It provides the master key because it allows you to understand how to think through the mind of the all. And when you start to understand how to think through the mind of the all, mentalism starts to break down and become something very different. And we start to lose our egotistical, logical thought processes of we can figure this out and we can know this, which we're not going to know it. And the book clearly says we're not going to know it. And we just need to leave it at that and just rest. And that's one of the things that was hard for me to accept, because, hey, everything can be figured out, you know, everything but the all. So once you embody that and you're okay with that, then you can move forward and you can start to study this work and understand that certain things you're just not going to know. And that's where the law of correspondence comes in. The law of correspondence helps you to understand what's above is below. So what is in the all's mind is in the mind of us. And therefore, we don't have to figure it out. It is. And that's what we have to get to that point. Sometimes that's difficult for people, but it's not always. But we will always want to remember that. So mentalism provides the master key. It enables you to grasp the laws of the mental universe. And the mental universe is very in-depth. In this book, it breaks down the all in probably 4 or 5 different chapters. So it really breaks down the different aspects of the all. So it helps you to grasp the laws of the mental universe. And that is the universe that's in the mind. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well. So, and you apply them to one's well-being and advancement. When you can understand and grasp the mental universe, then you can apply them to your own well-being for your own advancement. Okay, these keys unlock many doors, mental and psychic temples of knowledge. They unlock when you can tap into the mental universe. Now, how do people do psychic phenomenon? How do they tap into reading people? How they get message from people? And like, that's impossible. Well, that's because it's coming from the all, and we are a collective consciousness. You hear me talk about it all the time. The all is the all. We're included in the all. So we are all one consciousness. So therefore, the things that we're doing, if we understand mentalism and understand that we're one consciousness, we can tap into any consciousness that we want, not just on this earth. Okay? So that's the power that we have. But again, this goes into the all. And I know I'm adding a lot of stuff in here. So if you have questions, just ask me, because again, this is something that literally takes me a couple of hours to teach one chapter at a time. But we're going to go through all these. Okay. Mentalism provides the master key and explains energy, power, and matter. Why and how they are subordinate to the mastery of mind. Okay. He who grasps the truth of mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery. So we have to grasp the knowledge of the mental universe. Once we understand the mental universe, we can unlock keys to many different aspects. And we'll get into this again. I know you are like, hey, this is a lot of stuff you're saying that's not really giving me the answers. Well, congratulations, welcome to the Kabbalion, because that's how the Kabbalion is taught. It makes us go inside. So just open your minds. And as I'm teaching you these basic fundamentals, allow your innate systems to unlock and open themselves and to relieve special light codes that will start to come into you during this class. Okay? So just because I'm not teaching you doesn't mean I'm not downloading you all the information. Again, that is a mentalism. That is the mind of the all. That is an aspect of the mental universe. It's my mental universe to connect to your mental universe, to the collective universe. All right? So just open your minds. Don't try to figure out. That's where we get stuck. We try to figure everything out. Literally, after I go through this class, if you open your mind, open your heart to receive what's coming down, you'll have dreams. You have thoughts that are random that'll start answering questions out of nowhere. Okay? That is the ability of the all, of the mental universes. So that is the beginning to understanding how you can be advanced on the path of mastery. Because once you master yourself, guess what? You master everything in your universe. So if I've mastered myself and you step into my universe, then I'm mastering you. All right? And vice versa. Because likes are going to attract likes. All right? Moving to the next one. Any questions on that one? No questions online? Okay. All right, moving to the next slide. It's slide number 5. This is continuing on the principle of mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental, the Kabbalion. This principle breaks down into 5 sub-principles, and that's what I was talking about earlier. This one breaks down a lot, so you have to understand it. It goes into mental transmutation, it goes into the all, the mental universe, the divine paradox, one of my favorites, and the all in all, okay? So, a lot of this I've kind of discussed and talked about as we've been going through the previous slide, but let me talk about mental transmutation. That is the art of changing and transforming mental states, forms, conditions into others. Now, what did I just say about downloading information to you? That is understanding the mental universe. That is understanding mental transmutation. It's understanding how to transmute information, how you will never understand it until you decide to open your minds to receive and understand it, to receive the codes that are being given to you by the all. Because you can ask the all for anything. And if your mentalism is at the right level, the all will do it for you. So I'm asking the all, before I even start this class, for your minds to open, to receive the codes, to become the masters, all right? So you're on your step. This is the first step. Now, depending on your level of ability to meditate, depends on how deeply or how quickly you can actually evolve into the master, okay? Now, mastery takes practice. So I'm not saying it's gonna happen tomorrow, but who knows? If you're connected to the all and you're able to ask the all for that gift and all wants to give it to you, who am I to deny it? Congratulations. Okay. So, mental transmutation, the art of changing and transforming mental states. So, not only transforming your mental state, but others as well. All right? Mental transmutation. The next one is the all. Is in essence God. It's unknowable and it has no ID. What do we talk about when we talk about the ego? The ego is identification, okay? So, the all has no ID, has no ego. Very different from us. So that is the all. Nothing is and everything is becoming. This is something you need to make a note and put some lines to it and make sure you understand it. Nothing is, everything is becoming. What that means is everything is constantly in creation, regeneration, which goes into the last principle of gender. I told you I love that one because it encompasses so much of this stuff and it breaks it down to understand so we can create what we want to create if we can get mentalism and gender in the same principle, in the same property or same area. We can do a lot of things, okay? But you need the other ones as well. All right, from there we go into the mental universe. The universe is mental, held in the mind of the all, in its correspondence in gender. These two principles really work directly with the mental universe. Why does correspondence work with the mental universe? Because a lot of things that happen in the mental universe can never be explained. So again, it just goes into we'll never know. So what is above is below. So how do I create a mental transmutation? I start to see what I want to see in the above and I bring it to the below. The all brings it to the below. So that's correspondence. Now, how did I do it? How do I unlock you? How do I give you dreams? How do I walk through your dreams? That is all mental transmutation. That is opening you up. And we'll get into that when we get back to the gender as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you say, when you talk about above and below, are you talking about the 5th dimension and 3rd dimension, or are you?
Well beyond that.
Okay.
Remember, ID.
Okay, yeah. No ego.
Yeah. Now, see, and this is what I want you to understand. Like, as we're going through this, as you ask questions, I'll give you the answers. And a lot of times they're right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Because when we start talking about correspondence, now we want to put identity on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we can't identify the all because correspondence is part of y'all. Okay, so it starts to get real simple when we just have to open our minds and we have to open our perspective to see it in a different way. Okay, so it's a wonderful thing once you get it, because then you're like, wow, why am I even thinking about these things? Because I can just change it in the transportation. Side note, years ago, people would ask me to do readings. I love doing readings because I would just spot on all the time. But I would tell people stuff they really want to hear, so they always tell me I was wrong, and they come back 6 months later and say, oh yeah, you're right. And I was like, you know what, I don't even like doing this. Then I started learning mental transportation. So I was like, why you want a reading? We can just change what you want to change. Forget what you're going through right now, just create something new. Because 90% of what happens to us, we create through our own mental transportation, our own mentalism. We create it. So if we can admit that, then we can change it. But until we can admit that we create everything, we can't change it. We're only limited to what we believe we create. And then we're not even able to do that, because everything that happens in our life is probably about 90% transmutable. Now I'm gonna go to 99% transmutable, and 1% is divine law. And if divine law is in play, nothing nobody can do. Okay. All right, so we're moving from the mental universe now into the divine paradox, and I'll just finish with correspondence and gender under the mental universe. The mental universe also is understanding the mind and creation in the different mental planes. So that's going to get a little bit deeper into correspondence, where we have different planes of mentalism. We have different planes, period, even going beyond mental. We have the physical, the mental, and the spiritual planes. All right, so we'll get into those. But it's creation in the mental planes. In the mental planes, if you learn how to create the mental planes, you're there. That's half the deal. Okay. All right. So then we go into the divine paradox. The divine paradox is our universe is an imagination of the all. We are all real and not imaginations of our universe. Mentalism, the greatest natural force. Okay. So what that's saying is that in the divine paradox, the all creates us through the imagination of the all. When the all creates through the imagination, it becomes a universe, and a universe becomes a reality of whatever's living in it. So that's what I was saying earlier. We're not just imagination. So we're not just not real. We're very real, because we're in a universe that's being created in a dense matter or lower form of energy, which is moving much stiller. So this is our reality. So we need to learn how to live in this reality, but tap into a higher reality, which gives us the access to create in the divine paradox. It gets a little tricky. So they all circle back and forth and back around. They intertwine. Everything intertwines. It's like the collective consciousness, okay? This whole book is like the collective consciousness. And the last chapter is the all in all. And I just put down here, really simple, unknowable, okay? That whole chapter is all it's telling you. You're not gonna know they all right? That's it, and just accept it, be okay with it. And that's where you can actually move into higher realms, okay? Any questions from anybody online or in the room? All right, I'll move to the next slide. We're going to slide number 6. So now we're moving on to the principle of correspondence. So, as above, so below, as below, so above, the Kabbalion. This is a quote basically describing correspondence. So what that is saying in essence is what is above is below. So what is in the mental plane or the spiritual plane or the unknown plane is in the known plane, okay? So there is no tag or ID that we can put on it. Basically it's saying what's unknown is known and what's known is unknown, okay? What's inside is out, what's outside is in. It's a duplicate, it's a mirror. Correspondence is exactly the same, okay? So we can understand how things work in different dimensions just by understanding that if we can project ourselves into another space of the above, which is outside of our physical reality, that will be considered above. And it could be in many different things. Then whatever happens in that frequency or that universe will happen in this universe. And so it even goes into what's inside of us, what we create in our temple is what is reflected and shown to us on the outside of us. So if your life is in a place where you want to make some changes because the exterior doesn't look like you want it to look, then look inside and change on the inside. And you will literally change the outside automatically. That is the law of correspondence, or the principle of correspondence. Okay, so there's always correspondence between law and phenomenon. Three-dimensional events, which is the law of phenomenon. Three-dimensional events three-dimensional events of the various planes of being. Now, there's three major planes, or three planes, and those planes are consisting of 7 subplanes or minor planes. Now, we're not going to get into this because this will take about a year to cover, but we're going to talk about them. 3 major planes that you're going to come into contact is going to be the great physical plane. This plane is of the mineral mind. It's of the plane of the elemental mind, A, the plane of the plant mind, the plane of the elemental mind, B, the plane of the animal mind, the plane of the elemental mind, C, and the plane of the human mind. So the great physical plane has 7 subdivisions underneath it. And then we'll go into the next one, which is the great mental plane, which has another 7 underneath it, which are the same, very similar. And then we have another, which is under the great spiritual plane. Now, those I don't even talk about or mention, and I'm going to talk about the mental ones down here, and I'll list them out again. But when we talk about the great spiritual plane has beings on it at such high frequencies that we can never understand them. We can't even fathom it. So the book doesn't even go into the depths of the spiritual plane. So a lot of times we say we want to create on the spiritual plane. Well, the spiritual plane is well outside of our reach. However, there are spaces in the mental plane that go so high that you would think you're in the spiritual plane. So again, as human beings, our capacity just is not allowing us to move into these higher planes. However, again, because we're in a different time, if you ask the all may open up the doors and give you the information for the spiritual planes. I'm not saying it can't happen. All right. So then we go into the next one. All but degrees on one scale to help man understand this great plane. So these are different degrees. So you have the degrees of each plane. These planes are just listed out for an identification or an ID so that the human mind can start to understand them and break them down to get some aspect of what they are. Because again, they expand well beyond it. So these are but degrees that's put on a scale for the human mind to understand. Those are the different planes. It's not even fully understood, but it's broken down to the point where we can at least get a great understanding of it, of the physical plane, the great physical plane. So this is correspondence. Am I keeping you guys or am I losing you all?
No.
Everybody good? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, then we're gonna go down to the lower planes of physical undifferentiated matter. So that is at the lowest frequency or the lowest plane of the physical plane is us. It's matter. It's dense matter is where we are. And when we look at the highest point, it's spirit. So there we have the dense matter is below, the highest frequency is spirit, which is going to lead us into the next principle coming up when we talk about the vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the energy, which is going to be spirit. The lower the vibration, the more dense the energy, which is going to be matter, which is going to be us, the physical plane. Okay, we're going to get into that a little bit more in just a second. The principle for universal application for manifestation, universal law, the known versus the unknown versus the known. So when we're looking at a principle for universal application and manifestation is how do we create? We create in our minds, we create through mentalism. Where's mentalism? Nobody really knows. It's the above. Okay? And when we create in the above, what happens? It comes to the below. So this is a great tool to use when you're talking about manifestation. Again, all these principles work together, but some people are going to be initiated or integrated more so with other ones than some of the other ones. And some you're going to have to really work hard on to understand and encompass and balance your life, and other parts you're not. So when we're talking about everyday life is going to be of correspondence where we're looking at what is mentally in our minds will literally create and play out in our reality. So that is the principle of correspondence. In essence, that's how it works.
As long as you act on it, right? Because you can think a lot and visualize everything that we are talking about and everything that you desire, but if you just sit around and wait for it,
Yeah, that's true. Very, very true. If you just sit around, if you're mentally creating in your mind and you're just sitting around, guess what?
Nothing happens.
Well, we're going to break this down. I'm going to jump to the seventh principle on that one. That means your I is sleep and somebody else's eye is creating in your feminine, which is your me. So you literally probably could. I mean, you're created to the point where you could just literally close your eyes and go into that state and create. I told you I had a mentor. She would raise her vibration and start giggling and say, I want a Ferrari. And 2-3 days later, a Ferrari showed up at the door. She didn't do nothing.
I need that.
Yeah, there is no.
Me too.
Yeah,
Like right now.
again, there is no absolute. Everything is variable. There is no absolute. There is no variable. There is no law to it when it goes to mentalism.
It's all connected to the vibration.
It's all connected to the vibration. It's connected to the polarity. It's connected to the rhythm. It's connected to the correspondence. It's connected to the mentalism. It's connected to the cause and effect, and it's connected to the gender. All 7 of them. There's not one independent of the other. And that's what we have to understand. This is the collective. Just like we as a human species or this universe, we are all a collective. You have to understand everything has a consciousness in the above and the below. So that means that desk over there has a consciousness. So if you learn how to connect to that consciousness and lower your vibration frequency to match it, you could probably command it to do something. A lot of people do it. There is no rule. You know, just always remember that. There is no absolute. That's why we got to get out the mind. Because when we put the rule on, then we can identify. Aha!
Yeah,
No.
that's true. It reminds me of the Matrix, the movie.
Oh yeah, we're in the Matrix. that's for sure. That is for sure. We're there. All right, so this principle gives means to solve many of the hidden secrets of nature and the paradoxes. And again, it goes to the different planes. We talk about the mineral plane. We're talking about actual minerals, the atoms, the elements. These minerals have consciousnesses. These minerals have a plane where you can contact on and work and have them work for you if you get in touch with them. This is a plane. This is the physical plane. So this is more so on the below. Okay. So all these different planes, the plant plane, once you start learning how to tap into the plane of the plants or the elements, the elemental mind. The elemental minds go into something that we may not see that will call spirits. So everything gets really different. So it doesn't mean it has to be actual matter to have an elemental mind. It just has a lower vibration. So everything, and it depends on what's in this dimension with us. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not here. So each one of these different subplanes are part of the mental plane that helps us to create, helps us to understand. And gives us secrets to nature's paradoxes. Because once you can tap into these different planes, especially of plants, you can use the plants for healing. You can tap into their energy and ask them to heal you. You can ask them to show you what you need if you're out in the jungle or out in the gardens or even in a store. You can ask the plants, what do I need for my body to become more healthy? What do I need for my body to ascend? You can literally tap into that energy on the plant plane. Many different things. The elemental mind of B and then the elemental mind of C are going to different higher frequencies of spiritual beings, of elementals. Okay.
I just remembered one thing. I have told you before how I manifested the big amount of money that I needed desperately. And this is exactly, because you were talking about the Ferrari, that you can, it just comes to you.
Right.
Yeah, that was exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, everything works on correspondence, but it also starts from mentalism and it goes into vibration. So there's that is part of it. Yeah, very much so. So this property allows man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. So this gives us an idea of understanding what we can know and what we can't know. Because when we know what we can't know is actually what we do know, and what we know is what we don't know. And we can actually balance them out. So if you just base on what you do know and then what you can imagine, you can create. Okay. So this is correspondence. All right, moving to the next principle. Next principle is vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, the Kabbalion. This is a key statement. This is one that science breaks down and moves into different spaces and trying to figure out how it works. And in the book, it talks about how science uses vibration in understanding of how things move and how things work. But this actually goes back to an even deeper level. So everything is in motion on every plane all the time. So in science, we say Emotion, an object at motion will remain in motion, and an object at rest will remain at rest. That's a scientific definition, okay? And that's of energy. So if we talk about vibration, everything is energy and everything vibrates. In the Kabbalah, we understand nothing rests. Everything is constantly moving. Sometimes it's just moving so slow that it looks like it's at rest, but it's not at rest. It's still moving. So on the physical plane, the principle of vibration is going to manifest in energy and force. On the mental plane, it's going to manifest as thoughts and emotions. On the spiritual planes, it goes into a much higher frequency. When you go into the spiritual planes of vibration, that is taking a material plane or a physical plane, object in the physical plane, and spinning the vibration up so high that it goes back to its original state, which becomes spirit. So once we get into the spiritual plane, that is essential. So we don't explain and break that down as much. So higher the vibration, the higher position on the scale. We talked about that previously. Remember I talked about spirit and in the previous one of correspondence and matter. The higher the frequency, the higher spinning, or the faster the vibration, I won't say spinning because that can throw you off. The higher the vibration, the faster the movement of the essence or the energy. When that energy is moving so fast and it goes back to its original state, the original state is spirit. We start as spirit, we go back to spirit, okay? So when we can wind up the vibration so high in the human being or human body, we ascend. We can literally disappear and ascend because we go back into spirit. Now it's happening. You know, people are actually ascending like that at this day and time, should they choose to do that. Or they can ascend and keep their frequency as matter and live on earth and help other people do the same thing. So there's a lot of people that are doing that now, that are actually ascending to that point. And if you want to ascend to that point, you can. It just takes practice and knowing and having the right teacher, having the right understanding, and you can go to that level.
Everything that you have talked about so far, and just the feeling of mine about the rest, if you cannot let go of the ego.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's.
You can't let go of it.
Then you cannot.
You're only going to go so far.
Yeah. So the key in all this is to surrender the ego. Just
let me back that up. The ego is not bad.
no, it's for the survival. Right. It's good.
Well,
right.
The ego, you can never get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the question you're saying, but let's look at it from a different perspective.
Okay.
So you can ascend with the ego if you task the ego to move you into spirit.
Okay.
If you live in a lower frequency, a lower vibration of the ego,
You won't get that.
then you can't ascend because you can never get the vibration to go to that frequency, that speed. Okay? Because the ego is keeping you out of that ascension process.
Yeah.
But that is because we have tasked the ego to keep us out of that. And the ego then could be debunked when we go into the field of gender, when we look at the masculine and feminine energy. Okay? So, again, let me get back to this. All right, so everything is in motion. Everything is in motion on every plane all the time. We talked about the physical plane, which is energy and force. Energy and force is things of matter or energy, movement, stuff that has mass, density. We talk about the mental planes. We're talking about thoughts. We're talking about emotions. We're talking about things that are unseen or unknown. Spiritual planes go into a higher frequency. Higher the vibration, the higher the position on the scale. So spirit vibration is moving at such a high rate of speed, it practically looks like it's at rest. Okay. On the other end of the scale, the lower vibrational energies are moving so slow, they seem to be at rest as well. So it can be very confusing to see if something is a high frequency being or a very low frequency being. At first glance or first feeling, they almost appear to be the same, okay? Because the motion that they're moving in. Now between these two spaces, between these two vibrations, there are millions of degrees of speeds, okay? Millions, trillions of them. Everything moves at a different frequency. So we just have to understand the principle of vibration is know the movement or the vibration of what you're around. So in everyday life, how do we do this? We identify the vibrational frequency of Number one, the individuals who are around us. When they're at a lower frequency vibration, they vibrate at something we call below 500 or 600. So if they're vibrating below 600, they're vibrating at a space of grief, anger, disparity. And when they're vibrating in that sense, they're always very heavy. I won't even say negative, but they're very heavy. So you can start to see people that are not actively positive, and they are very heavy and very dense. They're weighing on you. So then you start to look at that. Now, if you are attracting too many of those people around you, then you have to look at yourself, because there's something about you that's attracting that. Maybe it's that you're supposed to heal them or to move them into a higher frequency. So you teach them how to go into a higher state of vibration. Who knows?
Most people have happy energy.
Yeah, a lot of people do. Yeah, yeah. That's unfortunately, I don't really experience them. So it's a beautiful thing, and you can choose that, and that's all our choices.
It's just, when you go to the gym, for example, you can sense it.
You chose to go.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
we choose everything.
One day I will have my home gym.
Yeah.
So
It's we always choose. Again, it's we have to be cognitive of what we choose to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that goes all into mentalism. It's knowing.
Mm-hmm.
We always, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's not that, because people can be a low vibrational frequency around you, but that doesn't mean you have to interact with them.
Yeah, very true, very true.
It does.
That is exactly what it is.
Exactly, definitely. All right, so controlling the mental vibration allows you to control yourself and others. Just like we talked about mentalism. Mentalism helps you to control and transmute the thoughts of others. So what's one key way that you can do something in mentalism to change or transmute the thought of someone else? You can raise your vibration to the point where your vibration is so high that it controls the vibration of the next person. And so they can come to a higher frequency with you, and then you can actually transmute their thoughts to what you want them to do, and they can go back and do it. It happens all the time. You've probably seen people like, man, how did that person just talk to me to get me to buy into this, to go along with this? I don't even like this. It's because their vibration goes so high, and they understand mental transmutation. They understand the principle of vibration and how to transmute mentally. Okay, so it allows you to control yourself and others. The ability to create the same vibration on a mental plane that science creates on a physical plane. That is called vibration at will. When you're able to do that, then you're able to shift other people, other things, other objects, other energies, so let's say. So the ability to create the same vibration on a mental plane that science creates on a physical plane is the vibration at will. Okay? So that's a key thing, perfect thing for us. That is something we all want to aspire to do, is to make everything vibrate on the frequency that science is at, because then we master the physical plane. Okay. All right, so he who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power. And that's for true, because when you can raise your vibration, you can make almost anything shift. Because with a high vibration, you have a high level of mentalism. They all work together, and you fully understand correspondence. So now you can see how this, and you can talk, when we talk about here, we talk about vibration. When we have a high speed moving energy, then it is going to be almost at a higher frequency, a higher plane on the scale, which is going to be more spiritual. The lower moving is going to be more physical. And what does that lead us into? The very next principle, the principle of polarity. So everything has its opposites. So we're going to move to the next slide. We're on slide number 8. The principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kabbalion. So basically what this is saying is everything is equal. It might be duality or dual, but it's equal. Just like we have light and dark. What's the difference? It's just a vibrating degrees of difference of light. So they're all the same. When we start looking at this, everything is dual, everything has two poles, everything has a pair of opposites. Like and unlikes are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. This manifests on the mental and the physical planes. The poles classified as positive and negative will be considered maybe right or left, or masculine and feminine. So when we look at the positive and negative, we're looking at the varying degrees of a vibration, of a position. Everything is just opposite. So if you got -5 here, you got +5 here. Always brings in a balance. -6 +6. -10 +10. Everything comes into the balance. Everything has its opposite. Everything can balance out. Everything can zero out. So if everything can zero out, everything can be shifted. This is a key tool when I'm using hypnosis and reprogramming. It's called polarity therapy. It's where I help you to understand the polarity, the principle of polarity. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciliated. So what is the truth? The truth is the understanding that you have versus the understanding that I have. So if my truth is based upon the understanding and knowledge that I have, and my knowledge is different from yours, my truth is going to be different from your truth with the same aspects in front of us. Okay, we're going to view things in a different space, but they're still the same. So they can always be reconciled. They can always be understood, because if I explain to you my position from my education, you explain to me your position from your education, then I'm able to think about what's happening, put my feet in the other shoes, somebody put their feet in my shoes, and then we can get an understanding, and we come to the middle, okay, which is balance. So there are no absolute standards. Just remember that, absolutes not existing, all right? So when we start talking about absolutes, there is no absolute. The only absolute is God. That's it. So everything else has a variable somewhere, okay? Everything is and isn't at the same time. There are two sides to everything. Light and dark are the same thing in varying degrees of vibration. Love and hate, same thing in mental degrees of vibration. So when we're talking about light and dark, we're talking about on the physical side. We're talking about love and hate, we're talking about the mental vibrations. We're talking about the mind. It's an emotion, it's a thought, okay? So these great planes exist. And again, once we go into the spiritual plane, the vibration and frequency takes us back to our original state. So the polarity is not existent, okay? In some cases, but in some cases it's going to change. The spiritual plane we can't understand yet, not on that high level. So vibrations can change by using the will or the Hermetic formula in one's own mind or in others. So that is what vibrations can do, and vibrations will help you to shift the understanding of polarity. So if you have a polarity and you understand that love is here and hate is here, we understand polarity is in existence, so that we get an understanding that each one of these polarities are happening for our highest good. So we love and we hate, all for the same reason. It's for some reason of ascension. So then we have to just understand if we don't want to receive hate and we want to receive more love, then we just agree that the love and the hate are just the same thing on varying degrees of vibration. And then we ask them to come together in polarity therapy. Ask them to come together and they meet in the middle. When they meet in the middle, then they come together and say, hey, we're trying to do the same thing. Let's ascend, but let's ascend in harmony. So we balance out the love and the hate, and we bring them to a center place. The extremes, right? And we bring them up. So the polarities are each extremes, okay? So that's how we want to balance that. All right, let's move to the next slide. And the next slide is the principle of rhythm. Everything flows in and out. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of its swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates the Kabbalion. What that is saying is everything has an ebb and a flow. Everything has the ability to move forward and to move backwards. Everything goes up, everything goes down. So in every manifested, there is a measure of motion to and fro, a pendulum type motion. So I want you to imagine a pendulum swinging from side to side, okay? So just think about that. This law manifests the creation and destruction of worlds, the rise and falls of nations, and life of all things, and finally in the mental states of man. So the mental states, just like the physical states, can rise and fall. So once we get on that high, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to stay there because of this principle of Okay. Action and reaction in the mental plane is what is manifested from the to and fro swinging of the pendulum. Action and reaction. So there's action to move this way, there's a reaction to move back, because everything has to come into its balance. Now remember, we talk about polarity. Polarity is here and here. The pendulum is just swinging back and forth. So you're going from one polarity to the next polarity, one polarity to the next polarity. So it can be winning and losing, winning and losing, winning and losing. All right. So there are some keys to understanding that principle of rhythm, because everything has its ebb, everything has its flow. Everything swings to the right and swings back to the left. Everything goes up the same height as it comes down. All right.
You mentioned the other day exactly this example, but you talked about how you could actually, when you go to if it's good times and difficult times, you know, that you could go, the pendulum could go back, but you would not sense the difficult times. And then, you know, when it comes back.
Yeah, I'm about to explain it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's I explained it the other week.
Yeah.
But yeah, what that is what we call the law of neutralization, and that's on here. Okay, so the master of self-mastery benefits unconsciously. Okay, it's the unconscious. It allows one to escape the effects to a degree. When you master the principle of rhythm, you can escape that swing to and fro. All right, mastery takes that. It's self-mastery. It's understanding yourself. Benefits are unconscious. Now, when they're unconscious, that means you're haphazardly creating. As a master, we create consciously. All right. So, want to think about this. When you master this principle, you can allow yourself to escape to a degree. I didn't say completely escape, but escape to a degree the rhythm. All right. Now, how do you do that? You consciously do that through the law of neutralization. And like I say, mastery means you are consciously doing this. If you're not a master, you're unconsciously doing this. People with high vibrational frequencies can unconsciously do this on a regular basis, but they don't know how they're doing it. So they can pin themselves on one spot, but not allow themselves to go back to the other, so they escape to a degree the pendulum swing. That's a person who's not yet a master, but they're doing it unconsciously. It's a high frequency person though. But when you're consciously doing it, that's the master. It's using the mental law of neutralization. It helps you to escape or reduce the effects of the principle of rhythm. And this is the law of neutralization.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like pertaining to being in the flow?
Yes. Yeah. So when you get into the flow, notice you get into the flow and you can't miss. You're constantly winning. You're constantly doing what you want to do. You're in the flow of success. Now, what happens is eventually that flow of success starts to die down, and then you go into that lull stage. Well, when you can polarize through the law of neutralization, your mental state, you can literally stay in the success state, or when you're being successful. You can literally pull yourself over there, and you do that through mentalism. When you come over, you literally take the understanding of polarities, and you know the other side is the same thing as this side. So you mentally place yourself in the higher side or the degree that you decide that you want to be on. That is the law of neutralization. So when you mentally put yourself into a space that allows you to stay in a flow, you're literally stopping your energy from going backwards, because you're mentally putting yourself into a place that you want to pin yourself to, and you stay there. So that is a law of neutralization. So you neutralize the pendulum swing. The pendulum keeps swinging though. It never stops. But you've just mentally now put yourself into a new place, so you don't lose. Okay. But yes, you can do that. And it's not hard to do.
I got a question.
Sure thing. What's the question?
Okay, I don't know if I'm going to ask it right or even understand it myself, but it's along the lines of polarity. So do you need failures in order to have successes?
That's a great question,
Right.
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you need failures to have successes? I'm going to go back to the previous slide. Nothing is absolute, okay? So to answer that question, yes and no. All truths are but half truths. If my truth is I only learn through pain or failure, then I need failures. If my truth is I only learn through success, I only need success. So it's variable according to the individual that is experiencing the experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like wow for me. Like,
Yeah.
I
So
always thought I have to suffer,
mm-mm.
you know.
Then this is the choice.
Like, I hear my dad's voice. If it's not hard, it's not worth.
Yeah,
If
that's
it's not hard,
that's
it's not
yeah.
worth doing.
Yeah, that's old thoughts. That's not true at all. Nowhere near true. Nowhere near true. Nowhere near.
Programming.
Yeah, and that's programming. That is programming that a lot of times our parents put into us. No, you got to work hard to do this. You got to do that to do this. And it's programming. These young children now are breaking that mold of that old program. That's a paradigm. That is a paradigm that's passed down from generation to generation. And if you're not wired to accept that paradigm, then you're fighting a battle your whole life until someone tells you it's okay.
Yep.
You don't have to have a hard time. You can literally help and have things easy. Just like you say, Misty, you can swing over to the side and pin yourself on that higher polarization and stay there and always be in the flow. That's your choice. And again, everything we do again is for our ascension. So if we need to have a hard time for our ascension, then we have a hard time. And guess what? We draw everything to us that we desire. We mapped all this out before our spirits, even our souls, jumped into our physical bodies and came to this earth. We chose our parents, we chose every experience, and we saw how we were going to get through it. And we said, these are some master keys, use them. The awakening state of our minds brings us into the ascension of our spirit, or into the ascension of our spirit. That is our whole purpose as human beings, to ascend. So that's why we're here with all these tests, because we have the free will to either ascend or descend. That's the only free will that we have. We have the will to either complete the process or stay in the process. You know, so we got a choice. That's free will.
Yeah, I got it. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
You're welcome. No, it's a great question. Great question. Great question. All right, we're gonna move to the next slide. Slide number 10. Okay, so this is the principle of cause and effect. This is a fun one. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but name for law unrecognized. That's the key thing right there. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. That means every effect comes from a cause. Every effect comes from a cause. There is no effect that does not come from a cause, and there is no cause that doesn't have an effect. Okay? So nothing happens by happenstance. We create the reality in our own minds, mentally. However we want to create it, we create it according to our own doctrine, our own law, our own paradigms. So whatever happens to us happens because we created it. Okay?
So you can say that supports that there are no coincidences.
No coincidence.
Yeah.
No, there's none. None whatsoever. None. So everything happens according to this law. Nothing ever merely happens. Chance does not exist. Okay. Various planes of cause and effect. Higher planes dominate the lower planes, and I want you all to realize that. Higher planes dominate the lower planes. You get on the higher plane by a higher frequency of vibration, a higher understanding, mentalism, and correspondence. Okay. When you have that understanding of vibration, mentalism, and polarity, more so mentalism, vibration, you can raise yourself to higher levels. When you raise yourself to higher levels, you become the causer versus the effect. Okay? Let me stick to this because I'll get off on a whole nother tangent on that one. All right. So you can raise above the ordinary plane of cause and effect in a certain degree. Doing this mentally raises to a higher plane, allowing you to become the causer instead of the affected. Now, all of us in this room, all of us online should want to move into that space of being the causer versus the affected. The masses are in a lower plane, or in lower planes controlled by the will and desires of people stronger than them, or others stronger than them. So we got to understand that. If you look at a line across here, let's imagine water. You have your water line here. You have your skyline here. You have a pendulum that's swinging here. You have a pendulum that's swinging from polarity to polarity, but guess what? This pendulum is swinging deep into the water. And sometimes the pendulum doesn't stop and come out the water. And if it doesn't come out the water, that's because the people in the water are of a lower frequency, a lower vibration. The things or the energies are of lower vibrations, and therefore you're going to be the effect of everything above that water line. So if you learn to climb the pendulum, the string of the pendulum, by raising your vibration, understanding these principles, you become the causer and you're not the affected anymore. So when we're looking at times, especially in the US, do we want to be the affected or do we want to be the causer? We create the reality. We create our own universes. So if we create a universe inside of us, then that universe reflects outside of us. So we can become the cause of everything inside of us, which changes and becomes the effect of everybody that comes into our being. Okay, remember I talked about transmuting mental understanding or the mental planes, transmuting the mental thoughts of other people.
A change the vibration.
Well, when you step into my universe, you playing by my rules, okay? And that's anybody. Anybody can do it. So anybody's universe, because it could be, it's not an absolute thing where it's okay, my universe is dominating in this aspect, but Mitzi, your universe could be dominating in another aspect. And then, so guess what? When we go into that other thing with gender, as we're getting into, that I, your I, is more powerful than my I, so my me is creating according to your thoughts, your projections. That's coming up next. Remember, the masses are in lower planes, just like you said. The masses of people are in the lower planes of frequency, and so those are the people that you want to basically be the causes of their effects. You don't want to be in that. So, master.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
I just want to make sure I have the right understanding. So, effect would be like everyone that's living in fear of this virus.
Yeah.
And then if I'm a causer, I'm getting out there and I'm enjoying
You're
my
creating
life
fear.
and living
Right. Well,
my
no.
life.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
the causer.
No, you're the causer if you're the one creating the fear of that sake.
Oh, okay.
But if you're not in fear, you're causing the effect of non-fear, with that's your own universe.
Okay.
So that's an everyday experience.
Okay.
So if you're not living in fear, you're the causer of non-fear. Whereas if you're living in fear, you're the effect of somebody else's causation. Make sense? So that's why we want to be and master ourselves. Because we start to learn every day, are we living according to someone else's doctrine and living to their rules? So every day we should apply these. Am I living in cause and effect? Am I living in effect or am I living in cause? Look around you and be honest with yourself. These are things you ask yourself personally. You don't have to ask other people, because when you ask other people, somebody might tell you the truth. And remember what I used to do when I used to read and tell people the truth. Nobody said I was right. You get shunned. So you have to understand that you should have these personal conversations with yourself and be very honest. When I do the mirror, this is a principle that I use. The mirror lets you understand whether you're being the affected or you're being the causer. And all of us want to be the causer, but most of us are being affected. It really the effects of the causes of higher planes. So, masters dominate the moods, characters, qualities, and powers, as well as the environment surrounding them, becoming movers instead of pawns. So when you master the understanding of cause and effect, it's not just people. You can shift the weather. You can change the rain. You can make it sunshine. You can make it hot. You can make it cold. You control the elements. And there are people that can do it. All it takes is practice and understanding this principle and allowing yourself to be the causer. But mentally, if you can never see yourself being the causer to change the weather, to create heat, to create cold, then you can't do it. But the first place you have to start is within yourself. Now, one thing is that there's a pool out there in the back. It's probably about 45 degrees water. Get in there and sit for about an hour and learn how to control your breathing to create heat. And if you learn how to do that, you can definitely control the environment outside of you. But that's just a technique. I mean, many people do it. So when you do this and you master and you dominate the moods, the characters, the qualities, and the powers, you become the player of the game. Okay. When you don't master them, you become the principal, being his tool. Okay. You become the pawn. Exactly. Instead of being the player, the pawn. What happens to pawns?
They get killed.
They get knocked off first.
Yes. Yes, they are the first one too.
First one. All right, so now we're gonna move to the last principle. Last principle is gender. This is one of my favorite ones, and this is what I've been talking about recently. Principle of gender. Gender isn't everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes, the Kabbalah. So what is gender? The principle of gender. Gender is in everything, first of all. So there's masculine and feminine energy in everything. So we're not just talking about male, female, or sex. Masculine and feminine principles are always at work. Remember that, they're always at work. Whether they're yours or somebody else's, they're always at work, these principles. And if you understand the principles of gender, then you can understand the mental gender. And the mental gender is how everything is being created. That is exactly how the ego can be tasked or can be put into its place to create what you want to create, which is essential. So masculine and feminine principles are always at work. They're on all planes, physical, mental, and spiritual. They never stop working. They're always working because these are the dualities of your mind. Masculine and feminine. The masculine is the spark, the feminine is the cathode. The cathode is what creates, the spark is what gives the idea, okay? The masculine and feminine. So on the physical plane, we talk about masculine and feminine, we're talking about sex, gender, male, female. But when we go well beyond that, we start going into the mental and the spiritual, we're talking about the spark or the thought, and then we're talking about the creation or regeneration or generation, okay? Because we're always creating. Now, as we see gender as generation and regeneration, and we see it in the mind. Mental gender is what I love to talk about. The creative thought of human beings. Two parts, two aspects. The creative thought, the mind, the energy of a human being is masculine and feminine. Okay? So what happens when the masculine decides to take a break and the feminine doesn't take a break? Because let me give you a little news flash. The feminine energy never rests. The feminine energy is the creator. So the feminine energy takes a thought and creates the reality. That is mental gender. The masculine is the thought process. It projects the thought onto the feminine aspect. The feminine aspect takes a thought, likes a thought, and creates a reality. The feminine gender, the me, never rests. I can't say this again. The feminine gender, me, never rests. The I will go to sleep. What happens if the I goes to sleep? That means the feminine me is going to be taking projections from another I. And that's what we talk about cause and effect. They're taking the projective thoughts from someone else's or some entities or some organization's I, and they're creating a reality. In this sense, it's creating the I of fear, and the projections of fear, and then fear is created. And then sickness is you're open to sickness. And that is the me creating, because the me is always going to create according to the strongest I. Now, the strongest I prevails, always. So whichever has the strongest system, just like the last one, it's gonna prevail. Okay? So whatever has the strongest whoever has the strongest I, just like the highest mentalism or the highest vibration, it's gonna trump the lower one. It all goes together. So they all work together. So you might have a high vibration, but a weak eye. You may have a strong eye, but a low vibration. So you have to put them all together.
How is it when the eye is half asleep? Because there are people who have like strong eye on several, maybe some fields, but then they are just completely knocked out.
Yeah, because remember I said earlier, you can be a strong causer in one aspect and weak in another one.
Yeah.
So the eye could be awake in one aspect of your life and can be completely asleep in another aspect.
Yeah.
There's no absolutes. Just because you got a strong eye in class doesn't mean you got a strong eye in the gym. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So that is the principle of gender. Very powerful when you understand it. If you can balance the masculine and feminine brains and learn to keep your eye awake, then your eye is projecting the thoughts that are created in your reality by your me versus being influenced by another me.
So the eye is kind of just built on critical thinking. The foundation of the eye is just critical thinking, like if you simplify it, right?
It could be part of critical thinking or abstract thinking.
Yeah,
it's thinking.
Yeah, yes. Just as long as you have critical thinking, if you have critical
Scratch
thinking,
critical thinking because you're putting a label on it. Because it can be thinking. Suppose you're not thinking positive. It could be critical, it could be or non-critical.
Yeah, and
it's thought. Period.
Yeah. And you could say critical thinking is different than I would say.
Exactly, because your truth is your
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And it's so that's how I say you want to be careful saying
Yeah, put a
absolute
label on it.
statement.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's just thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, thought. Period in thought.
I know what I totally get what you're saying, but you understand what I'm trying
Yeah,
to say.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying with critical thinking, then that is creating the I,
Yeah.
the thought process.
And you are more in control of the I
Mhm.
than
I understand what you're
others.
saying.
Yeah.
But now you just got to realize, blanket that, because if you understand critical thinking is one thing, and somebody comes in and understands critical thinking is another, and describes critical thinking the way you're explaining it, but then they add a twist to it,
Yeah.
and mentally twist you,
And
then their eye
you
just took
have
yours
their
out.
eye on your
So just say blanketed thought,
yeah.
thinking, any projection. I wouldn't even go to thinking, any projection, because it didn't have to be a thought. It could be a physical gesture.
But it's like all based on your truth, connected to their.
It's based on it, but
Yeah.
remember your truth. If your truth is not as strong as someone else's truth,
Yeah, they will be.
then their truth is going to take over.
Yeah.
So that's why I say you never want to look at it like, well, it just depends on what you believe and what I believe. Yeah, that's true, because they can reconcile. But as they reconcile, somebody might not want to reconcile.
Yeah.
Somebody might want to take over.
Yeah. Most likely.
Yeah. So you just have to always keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That is true. It's all truths are but half truths. But if you got somebody who has a truth of wanting to dominate, you think they're going to want to reconcile? So remember, everything goes. There's no absolutes. Okay, this happens, and then okay, we this do. No, there's no. There's only laws of the universal laws that run along these different aspects, these principles, and the universal laws are the only law, and that is not a universal law. The universal law is the strongest trumps the weakest, all the time. Yep. But I understand what you're saying completely. My advice to you is. Just be aware, because everybody's not trying to reconcile. Because now we have to bring the principle of polarity in. You see how that happens?
Yeah.
Now, see, you just went to one principle, which is true.
Yeah.
All truths are but half truths. But then we go into the extra part of polarity, and it goes that some people don't want to reconcile. Just on the other side of polarity.
Yeah, they want to be on the.
Right. Some people don't want to
Yeah.
reconcile. Yeah. So that's what you have to always realize, because everybody's not going to have the good heart. So, but there's very good points, very good points. All right, so we're moving to the 12th slide, which is how to make them work for you. And we've kind of described this as we've gone through this class this evening. It's one thing goes to another, and the other goes to another, and it's like the questions, the discussion we've had has helped you to understand how to be aware of everything, 360 degrees of awareness. Because as we look at one aspect and put this in a box, then we take this aspect, put this in a box. That's your truth by putting it in a box, but it might not be someone else's truth putting it in a box, and they might want to dominate you. So you have to always understand that everybody is not on the same playing field. We're never on an equal playing field.
But if you put it in a box, are you not putting an ID on it?
Yeah, if you put it in a box, you put an ID on it.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if you understood it. It was that when you put something in a box,
Yeah, no, you're right.
it does label it.
Yeah.
And it puts it into kind of quarantine, so it's stuck over here, so it can't expand into here. But everybody doesn't have the same idea of the same box. So somebody else's box might encompass your box, and so therefore their eye is going to encompass your eye, if you're not careful in that aspect. Now another aspect, you could be your eye could encompass their eye, and then you got a back and forth battle, and then you go into another principle. So yeah, everything is always forever moving, but it's understanding how to make these work for you. Is learning the principles and learning where every day you're applying these things. Where is your mentalism? Every day, where is it? Are you in a state where you're mentally understanding that you're the creator of your environment? Where's your correspondence? Are you understanding that the unknown is the known, the unknown is the known, and the known is the unknown? And it's okay if you don't know it, because if you create it, then it is true. So that's correspondence. When you go back into the understanding of vibration, is my frequency at a high rate, or am I at a low rate? Am I vibrating so high that I look like I'm still, or am I vibrating so slow that I'm looking like I'm still? You know, where's my frequency? Where's my vibration? And then looking at polarity from there, it's like, when it create the vibration, is it spinning the polarity into two separate ways and understanding that each are the same? And then are we looking at from polarity to to rhythm? Is it moving side to side? Can we control this? Can we switch the polarity using the vibration and mentalism to pin it and to neutralize it through law of neutralization? You start to look at like, okay, my life is running smooth, so I don't want to get caught in rhythm on this side of the polarity. I don't want to get caught on the back side. I want to stay on the front side. So I want to polarize myself using polarity during rhythm.
It's like what is going on exactly in my life right now is, for example, emotions. I managed to completely detach take my emotions from the equation and see clearly. But then I was going to the other extreme direction.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to pulling myself back to the middle.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say and ask is, when it comes to emotions, for example, and emotions are kind of a little bit attached to your ego.
Yeah. They can be.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. So you're working with these two, emotions and the ego. Now I just got. I'm trying to say something, but I just lost it. It was.
That's all right. It'll come back to you.
Yeah.
It'll come back. Back. So basically, what you want to do is remember that make these things. Look at your life and how things are happening. Use each one of the principles to look at how your life is flowing and apply. If something is going great, apply to this aspect. If your rhythm is going great, then learn how to neutralize it and keep it at the higher polarity. If you start to want to create more, going from the understanding of the gender mentalism, then you start to look at, is my I controlling the creations of my me, or is someone else's I controlling the creations of my me? And then you start to really go into that aspect, start to really learn this. But the first thing you got to really tap into is mentalism and put each other process into account for how it's affecting your life. But first start with mentalism, because the first thing is your mind. Where is your mind? Your mind has got to be in a space of strength. And when your mind is in that space of strength, then you can start to create and balance all these other principles. But if your mentalism is not in a space where you feel like you can be at the highest frequency possible of your vibration, then it's very difficult for you to move into a high vibration if your mentalism doesn't see it. So the mentalism is the first thing, and understanding that we are creations of the all in the image of the all. So that should give you a boost of confidence that you have amazing abilities. So the first thing we're going to do is focus on mentalism. That holds the master key, mentalism. And then you want to apply each principle in everyday life. Where is each principle affecting you in your life? Or what situations or experiences are you going through? And identify the principle that is working through it. Take each experience that you go through and say, how am I holding or faring using the 7 principles in this experience? Is my mentalism strong? Is my correspondence in a good place? Is my vibration high? Is my polarity on the right side? Am I polarized? Am I in rhythm? Am I the cause of my effects? And then, am I creating through my own gender, through my own abilities? Because that gender circles right back around to the mentalism. Okay? A strong mentalism gives you a strong eye. So, with this is every day you got to practice. I say here, practice, practice, practice. Every day, practice, 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 practice applying everything into your life that I'm talking about. And again, we just touched the surface of these, this tip of the iceberg. I mean, it gets much deeper. The next thing is, knowledge is knowing, wisdom is putting knowledge into practice. So everybody can have knowledge, but unless you put it into practice, it's not wisdom. So knowledge and practice is wisdom. And that's how you elevate. That's how you get better. That's how you become the master. You become the master through wisdom, not through knowledge. Because knowledge is nothing without wisdom. Wisdom is nothing without knowledge. The very next quote. Okay. Which principle is that? Can anybody tell me? The principle right there. There you go. Yep. Knowledge is nothing without wisdom. Wisdom is nothing without knowledge. Correspondence. All right. And so the last slide for this presentation is the Hermetic teachings are that man may use law to overcome laws, and that the higher will prevail against the lower, until at least he has reached the stage in which he seeks refuge in law itself, and laughs the phenomenal law to score. I'm gonna let you all think about that. I'm not even gonna break that down, because that says some key stuff in it.
Yeah.
The first was very simple, very on the physical plane. Then it went to the mental plane, and it went straight to the spiritual plane. So I'm gonna let you all figure that out. And for homework, anybody that wants to, feel free to break that down for me. Break down the line, the first line, that man may use many laws to overcome laws. What does that mean? And that the higher will prevail against the lower will. So those are kind of the same, until at least he reaches a stage in which he seeks refuge in law itself. What does that mean? And then what is the last one? And laughs the phenomenal law to score. What is that?
Mastering.
Yeah.
Well, you know, hey,
Yeah.
shoot me an email. Yeah. But that's it. I mean, because it's funny when I'm getting to high levels and learning, all through these techniques and learn all this stuff, and then when you master it, it's like you realize we go back to the first law of mentalism. Nothing else matters. But you got to go through the process before you get to that stage. So that's, again, going from first grade to the doctorate. All right, we can't go from first grade to the doctorate. Okay? We got to learn the process. Okay. Well, I mean, the process is already in us. The code is already in us. If you just awaken to it, then you all of a sudden figure it out. One day you wake up and you completely change. But that's it for this evening. I want to thank you all for joining for the 7 Hermetic Principles. It was a lot of fun teaching this class. And again, this is the tip of the iceberg. There has to be more in-depth study to become the masters. All right. So again, I appreciate you all for joining. I want to say Ahawa Shlema. Thank you all, and you all have a good night.